Do you want to be ahead of the game for the latest in arts, music, cuisine, and entertainment across the Middle East's most dynamic capital cities? Al Monitor is proud to launch our City Pulse newsletters, focused exclusively on local news, starting in Riyadh, Dubai, Istanbul, and Doha. Each week, our on-the-ground writers in these cities cover the latest cultural happenings and trends, so you have everything you need to know for the best local experiences. To subscribe for free, go to almonitor.com, that's al-monitor.com, and sign up on our newsletter page.
So this is very worrying for Israel, and I think that with the Houthis being more or less the last proxies used by Iran, there is a determination in Israel to increase this military campaign against the Houthis, and I'm assuming that we will see more Israeli aerial attacks against the Houthis in the coming weeks, in the coming months.
Welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief. I'm Adam Lucente. The Syrian government said Israel struck its army near Damascus on Wednesday, leaving 6 soldiers dead. It was one of a number of Israeli strikes in the country this week, concurrent with ground operations reported by state media and the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. Israel doesn't typically confirm all of its operations in Syria, but said last week that they confiscated a number of weapons throughout the south. The escalation comes as Israel and the new Syrian government, led by former jihadist Ahmed Ashara, seemingly make progress towards some sort of a security deal in the U.S.-backed talks. Syrian Foreign Minister Asad Ashibani met an Israeli delegation led by Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer in Paris last week. In Yemen, the Israeli military carried out one of its biggest strikes yet on Thursday, targeting a number of senior Houthi ministers. At the time of recording on Friday, there were unconfirmed reports that Houthi Prime Minister Ahmed al-Rahawi was killed. And in Lebanon, Israel expressed regret on Friday after a drone the military said was targeting Hezbollah infrastructure crashed the day prior, killing 2 Lebanese soldiers. On Monday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu heaped a rare dose of praise on the Lebanese government, commending them for advancing a plan to finally disarm Hezbollah. His comments came amid U.S. pressure on both Lebanon to disarm the group and Israel to withdraw from its military positions in the country. In this episode, we hear from Al Monitor's Israel Pulse chief, Rina Bassist. Rina takes us through the reasons Israel continues to hit Syria amid the de-escalation talks, why the Houthis are considered by some to be the, quote, last proxy standing in the Iranian axis, and whether U.S. pressure on Israel to get on board with Hezbollah disarmament will translate into changes on the ground. At the end, we also go over the decision by the United Kingdom, France, and Germany to trigger snapback sanctions against Iran over its alleged noncompliance with the nuclear deal, and what it means for the wider region. Hope you enjoy. Rina, welcome back to the Al Monitor Brief.
Thank you for having me.
Rina, there have been signs of progress in the Israel-Syria talks, but Israel has bombed Damascus and done ground raids in southern Syria this week. What do you think is Israel's current strategy vis-a-vis Syria?
Yes, you are absolutely right. Israel is negotiating a deal, a security deal with Syria. We have to emphasize that. We are not talking about any negotiations towards a peace treaty, because for the moment, I think it's unthinkable for Israel to negotiate giving back the Golan Heights. But Israel is negotiating a sort of a security deal with the regime of Ahmed Ashara. And at the same time, the Israeli army itself continues to raid even as environment of Damascus. I think that Israel is taking the time, first of all, with these negotiations, even though we did hear in the press as if a deal is imminent. Israel is taking the time to register achievements on the military side, to bomb what it considers as threats, and it wants to arrive to this stage of really signing a deal, knowing as much as Israel can know that most of the threats have been eliminated. Now we know that to reach such a security deal, Israel would need guarantees, probably American guarantees, for the demilitarization of the buffer zone. You know that since the Bashar al-Assad regime fell, Israeli forces are present in this area on the Syrian side. And there is also the question whether Israel would retreat or not from a very strategic position, which is the Hermon mountain on the Syrian side. That is less evident for Israel to agree to, because it's a very strategic point for the Israeli army. And there is a third demand on the Israeli side, and that might be the most complicated demand on the way to reaching such a security deal. And this is the Israeli request that there would be a humanitarian corridor going from the Israeli side all the way to El Suwaida, to where the most of the Syrian Druze population is situated. And this is something new. This is something that did not exist, of course, in the 1974 agreement, security agreement between Israel and the Syrian regime. And this, of course, infringes on the Syrian sovereignty. So this is a demand that evidently would be very, very difficult for Ahmad al-Shara to accept.
Thank you. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu notably praised the Lebanese cabinet's decision to advance a plan to disarm Hezbollah. How do you think U.S. pressure might be influencing Netanyahu's approach to Lebanon?
Yeah, the statement you refer to, it reflects perfectly the pressure of the Trump administration on Israel on this point, on the Lebanese file, because the statement of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying that Israel appreciates the efforts by the Lebanese government to disarm Hezbollah. Israel recognizes these efforts, and if the Lebanese government continues on that route, Israel might be willing to retreat its forces probably partially from the south of Lebanon. And this statement by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was issued a day after he met in Jerusalem with the American envoy, with Tom Barak. So we see the immediate effect of the American pressure. But having said that, it's important to stress that despite this very positive statement by Netanyahu, for the moment, we don't see anything happening on the ground. First of all, we don't see any retreat of Israeli troops from any of the 5 points, the sites that the Israeli army is occupying at the moment on Lebanese soil. So we don't see any retreat, and we don't see any decrease in the number or in the scope of Israeli airstrikes on Hezbollah targets. So for the moment, it seems, yes, on the diplomatic side, there is a willingness by Israel to recognize the efforts made by the Lebanese government. And as the Americans are demanding to reward the Lebanese government for these efforts, but it's not happening for the moment. I'm assuming that when it will happen, we will not be talking about a full retreat of Tzal from these 5 very strategic positions. Israel might agree to retreat from 1 or 2 of these positions. It will be a goodwill gesture, if you may, and maybe to reduce the scope of the aerial attacks. Having said that, we know that the Israeli army is not so keen on taking these steps of encouragement towards the Lebanese government, as the assumption of the different security agencies is that Hezbollah, despite being, of course, considerably weakened, Hezbollah is still attempting to rehabilitate itself. The Israeli intelligence still detects attempts to move weapons from one location to another, even trainings and attempts by Iran to finance these trainings and to transfer money to Hezbollah so it can rehabilitate itself after all the attacks it suffered from. So that might explain also the very Netanyahu taking his time going from a diplomatic statement to really launching actions on the ground.
Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with Rina Bassist after this short break.
Today's transformation of the Middle East is at the center of global geopolitics. Whether you're an analyst, diplomat, executive, or academic, you need the best reporting and analysis to understand what's really happening on the ground and what it means for the world. Al-Monitor is the award-winning independent leader in Middle East news. From Riyadh to Beirut, Abu Dhabi to Doha, and Baghdad to Tehran, our team of over 100 expert journalists report daily on the top stories driving the regional trends. Download our mobile app and subscribe to Al-Monitor to follow what leaders and decision-makers are reading every day. Go to almonitor.com, that's AL-MONITOR.com, and use promo code POD25, POD25, for a discount.
Okay, we're back. Rina, Hezbollah has largely ceased its launches towards Israel, but the Houthis continue to fire missiles at Israeli territory. How does Israel view the threat of the Houthis in comparison to the other members of the pro-Iran axis?
Yes, we have to say that, after October 7, we spoke a lot about this axis of resistance, as the Iranians like to call it, all these proxies of Iran. And we had Hamas, considerably weakened. We have Hezbollah, who suffered many blows these recent months. And then we have the Houthis. And the Houthis might be the last proxy still standing, if you want. It's true that Israel launched several attacks against the Houthis. It bombarded over the past year, not only the seaports, which the Houthis are using for their attacks against Western ships, but also infrastructure like electric plants and so on. But the Houthis continue to fire missiles at Israel. We're not talking about large quantities, but still we have seen, I was in Israel mid-August, and during my stay in Israel of just a few days, there were twice alarms about warning citizens that the Houthis are firing missiles at Israel. And at one case, in one of these cases, we are talking about a cluster bomb that was constructed on this ballistic missile. So this is very worrying for Israel. And I think that with the Houthis being more or less the last proxies used by Iran, there is a determination in Israel to increase this military campaign against the Houthis. And I'm assuming that we will see more Israeli aerial attacks against the Houthis in the coming weeks, in the coming months.
And finally, this isn't directly related to what we're talking about, but I think it's of interest to the listeners because it's about Iran. Why do you think that Europe decided to initiate the snapback sanctions against Iran?
Listen, I'm sitting in Paris, and for the past 2 days, of course, I've been talking with a lot of French and other European diplomats. And it is very clear that there was a very big disappointment in Europe within the E3, the three countries that are supposed to negotiate with Iran. There was a big disappointment after this meeting a few days ago in Geneva with the Iranian representatives, and Tehran didn't present in this meeting no new plan, no new suggestion, no willingness to allow inspectors to really come and control what is and see and to inspect what is happening in the different Iranian nuclear sites. And I think it was mostly this disappointment of this last meeting in Geneva that really brought this decision of reactivating the snapback mechanism, because the Europeans felt that really they have tried everything they can to encourage the Iranians to come back into negotiations, and the Iranians are simply not interested. We know that we have the deadline that is coming soon, and it's a process that takes 30 days to reactivate the snapback. So if we're talking about October 18, a month before that, we are almost there. So also the Europeans, they had to make a decision now or in this coming week. And there is also another consideration, which is that in October, it is Russia that would be taking the presidency of the United Nations Security Council, and we know the Russian position vis-à-vis Iran. The Europeans are estimating that once Russia is at the presidency, everything would become more complicated. If ever they try, if they would have let go the snapback and would have opted for trying to pass another resolution on Iranian sanctions, Russia would have blocked that. So taking together all these components, we can see why the Europeans decided now, of all times, to announce, to send this letter to the United Nations Security Council that they intend to reactivate the snapback.
Rina, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Al Monitor Brief. Be sure to follow Al Monitor for more on the stories impacting the Middle East. Until next time, I'm Adam Lucente.